Hey everybody, Devon C Ford here with one of my fans, Ant Canoli. Hi, Ant.
How you
Uh,
doing?
I'm good. I'm good. We're doing a little Q&A for the Written Undead, a little Halloween special. The group's been throwing some questions your way, I think. So up to you. Carry on.
Sure. So first off, how long have you been writing for?
Um, Writing properly since the start of 2016. Since go for a close up. You can see the scar there.
Mm-hmm.
Not really. I've just done a weird thing with my hand. Um, Broke a bone in my hand quite badly. Got it trodden on, turned into quite a lot of pieces of bone. So that was a metal plate. Ended up sat in an office, not really doing much, and kind of idea turned into notes, turned into a story plot, turned into a book before I knew about it. That was 2016. I published first three published in April 2016, and yeah, 20.
And which were your first three?
That was the first three, the After It Happened series. That was Survival Humanity Society. Literally no idea what I was doing. Got good covers for cheap and barely edited, and just literally threw them out there, which annoys me because my most successful books are by far the worst ones I've written.
I think your fans would say otherwise.
Oh,
Um,
they would, but they're blinded by it.
so up until that point, you hadn't done any writing before that?
I'd done bits and pieces, but I'd never given it any kind of serious consideration. It was more years of kind of like half abandoned projects, and I still have. This was a joke I made with Hank Garner on the author stories. I've got a folder on my desktop it's actually called. Let me have a look. Half cooked ideas and general shit, and that is
Yep.
absolutely filled with 20,000 words of an orphan story that's never going to see the light of day. I get this amazing idea. I get up at 2 a.m. I write 10,000 words. I'm dead by lunchtime, and I have no idea what I'm going to do with it. And I do that quite a lot. I'm writing six different things at the moment. I'm obviously prioritizing the ones that have deadlines and things like that. But I honestly, I've got the attention span of a kitten when it comes to sticking with the single project.
Yeah. At what point did you realize that writing could be more than just sort of an ad hoc hobby, that it was something that you could really throw yourself into?
Um, at the time I first published, I was still a serving police officer. That's why I used the pen name. And I told very few people that I'd actually published. I told a friend of mine, and he walked past one day. He's like, "Oh, how many books?" I was like, "Oh, 50 books." Come back like 4 days later. He said, "How many books?" It's in the region of like 24,000, and he's like, "Fuck
Wow.
off."
Yeah.
Yeah, and um, it was kind of a golden age for self-publishing. It was the very end of the short serialized kind of success stories. I don't know what it was. The Amazon God smiled on me, and it worked. So that's 9 books in that series now, and another 20 elsewhere.
hmm How many books into it were you before you were picked up by a publisher or Audible? Because I think Audible in particular, especially with some of the talented narrators, has the ability of taking some of these stories and really enhancing them to a point where they get sort of a very strong following.
Oh, without a doubt. I mean, I wouldn't have anywhere near the following I've got now if I hadn't entertained a call from Victoria at Podium. Um, Podium had The Martian, their big success story at that point. Um, Bob Bray was still fairly new to kind of top end Audible.
Yeah,
Um,
who's a phenomenal narrator, by the way.
he is fantastic, and Bob is Bob, and Bob has very much his own cult following. Um, I mean, if I put everything I had through him, it wouldn't be right. I know he hates doing British accents, um, but like Toy Soldiers would not be right for him to read. It's completely out of his wheelhouse, and he'd be the first one to admit that. The one I'm close to finishing, the second out of 3 books for now, is the post-apocalyptic wasteland series. I've just given it away. Yeah, Bob's reading that next year. That's
good to know.
Yeah, that's very much.
I'll save an Audible credit for that.
Yeah, well, that's very much for him. But yeah, I've as soon as you hit certain successes, you start getting a lot of unsolicited offers. You know, when you've got people claiming they can get you, 1 million copies sold, and then you Google the name of their company and you can't find anything, you think, yeah, okay. But no, then I've been working with Vulpine for a long time, and with Athon in America as well, and to the point where I don't self-publish anymore because I don't have the skills and the support to do the marketing that they do. I don't have the distribution networks, and the more time I spend marketing, the less time I spend writing, and I don't enjoy marketing. So yeah, it was. Well, yeah. It was probably 6 months in where I got the approach, and I've mentioned this before. The Mike Fuchs, the author of Risen, I got in contact with him because I was trying to turn down Bob after it happened. And I mean, quote unquote, Michael said, if you turn down R.C. Bray, you're a fucking idiot.
Yeah, you're crazy.
I was like, all right, fine, I'll do it if you say it's that. Yeah. And it was fantastic. And the first time I heard him read the epilogue of book 6, I pretty much broke down the kitchen. And it's not like I didn't know what was going to happen. But hearing that acted was phenomenal. And I always have this, I write a book. I don't always write a book knowing who's going to narrate it. I don't always write it knowing, what kind of audience and fan base it's going to. And sometimes I do. Sometimes I write knowing who's going to read it and I write accordingly for that audience. But hearing, it's not a narrator's job to write the story, and it's not my job to tell them how to perform it. You don't hire a plumber and watch what they're doing and tell them what they should be using. You've got to let go and let the person perform that story. And I've worked with. Sorry, if I'm looking up there, I'm looking at my shelf of my own books. It's very vain, I know, but I've worked with Bob Bray, Neil Helligers, Mark Vitor, John Lee, Luke Daniels, Ray Porter, and Kate Redding. All of them are phenomenal, really professional, great to work with. Mark Vitor especially, his feedback is he's just fantastic to work with. But yeah, these people, I've done my part, and then they have to do their part. And I believe that the people who read and listen are a very small minority of the fan group. You're either an Audible person because most of the people spend a lot of time in a car or traveling. I don't read because, I do words for work. So unless I'm on a beach somewhere, which, let's be honest, that's not going to happen anytime soon, I'm not going to be reading for fun. I'm reading because I'm editing, I'm reading because I'm writing. So I have an audiobook on the go all the time, and I have no commute. So I've always got my headphones on doing stuff. So yeah, you got to step back and let your narrators do what they do.
Does Podium or the other publishers, do they give you a lot of freedom to pick your narrator? Do they sort of trust you to know who's going to pull off your story the best?
No, that's one of the things of signing contracts and going with companies. You've got to, I mean, you can turn around and go, right, yes, I want this person for this story, but they may not be right for it. They may not be available for 18 months. And that's why, like Audible Studios, they have a huge casting department, and they throw names at you, and you can look at those names and go, no, that ain't right. When I worked with Tantor for Toy Soldiers, they threw a few names at me. I went, no, and I went like that. I went, John Lee. Oh yeah, definitely John Lee. And the fact that it's horribly childish and yet fun at the same time. I got to make John Lee make a fart noise, and that is forever there. And yeah,
You always have that.
that's
That
you
special
cannot
moment.
take that away from me. Yeah.
Do you ever, when you're in the process of writing stories as sort of a new up and coming author, do you ever run these ideas by other authors or other people and ask, does this make sense? Am I going somewhere worthwhile, or is this an idea that I should abandon for the sake of something else?
I'll be honest, I don't unless I'm working with someone, and I've collaborated with two people already. I'm working on a third collaboration now. All of those are very different styles and how we work. But no, I don't run anything up the flagpole. My mind's littered with ideas for stories, and if it's not working for me, it's not going to be working for someone else.
Mm-hmm. A question from David in your fan page says, have you ever started writing something for a particular series, but then used it for a different series altogether?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, some of the insults that Squadron Sergeant Major Johnson gives to Trooper Nevin, some of those are straight out of other books that I've actually was writing at the same time, and I lifted them because they, I can't use them twice. I can't plagiarize myself, but those insults fitted Johnson's character perfectly. To referring to someone as a 5'5" advert for condoms, that absolutely had to come out of that guy's mouth.
Yep. So one of the unique things about being able to self-publish, which is sort of a product of the modern times that we're in, is that it allows a lot of people to get an early start. That being said, in the last decade or so, there's been a handful of very talented authors who have written in similar genres such as you. How do you make your work stand out in an area that has the Extinction Cycle series, the Arisen series, the Remaining series? How do you stay original and fresh in a genre like that, where there are so many very talented and popular series amongst your pool of audience?
Okay, just picking out two of those. Talk about Mike and Nick. E-Cycle, Helldivers, Arisen, and Michael's Arisen is one of the reasons I set Toy Soldiers in the 80s, because I did not want to have a direct competition against those two writers in that genre. I didn't want to be trying to snap at their heels. So that's where I did something different. But here's the big shock. I think people don't want something different. What they want is the story that they recognize with the kind of characters they recognize, but with variations. So it's not different, it's fresh. People aren't always looking for something completely out of the box. You think about it in the last 15 years, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones, pick those two huge epics. They were different, but not different. These weren't revolutionary stories that came out of nowhere. But their characterization and the author voice was more unique. So in a way, there are tweaks, there are individualities, and every author puts a part of their personality into it. But going completely wildly different is a really risky move. I've gone quite different with the reason I didn't mention him earlier, Greg Tremblay, is because I haven't got the paperbacks up there yet. My Defiant series, that is out the box. So people who know me from After or from Toy Soldiers are going to read that and go, what the hell's this? Right. That's kind of, Equilibrium on steroids kind of thing, or Equilibrium minus the steroids maybe. So yeah, putting your own spin on a genre is difficult. And also, people talk about avoiding tropes. Never avoid a trope. A trope is a trope for a reason. When you have a group of lawless humans with no consequences, with no law enforcement to enforce laws, then those laws will be intentionally broken. People will turn Viking, people will prey on others because that's
Mhm.
human nature. That's not it is and isn't a trope, and it's a trope because it's a very recognizable element of human nature. So
Mhm.
yeah, there is always going to be some madman wearing someone else's skin in a weird post-apocalyptic setting, because shock horror, that shit's going to happen.
Right. Now, uh, like you had said about some other authors where you write generally in the science fiction field, but within that, there's post-apocalyptic, military sci-fi, zombies. Of those, which is your personal favorite? What do you enjoy writing the most?
What do I enjoy writing the most? Um, oh, honestly, that's it's really difficult, because when you write zombie, you get a free reign to be really gruesome, because that's what people read zombie for. They want brutal. They want to
Pretty sure
feel a
it's the
little bit
character development.
sickened. Yeah, they want to feel a little bit made sick by what you're saying at times. Not too much, nothing too gratuitous, but you do have implied permission to go pretty gruesome. With the
Mhm.
post-apoc, for me, that digs really deep into human psyche, and that gets to show up an awful lot of personality flaws, which people wouldn't um, necessarily even notice um, pre-apocalypse, but
Mhm.
in the Brave New World, that stuff would come right to the surface.
Like
With
the
Mill
deep parts of
sci-fi,
human nature get enhanced almost.
exactly, and it will mask all your first world problems, because having running out of mobile data for your phone is not going to bother you when you're running out of clean water to stay alive, that kind of thing. It turns all the priorities on its head, and it really exposes your true character. And that's why I think people love the post-apocalyptic side, because everyone has this idea. Everyone who reads, everyone who enjoys the genre has this idea of who they'll be in the post-apocalypse. I mean, they'll most likely be an extra who dies in the first series, but they all want to think that they're going to be part of that survivor group, and they all think, where would I fit in? What skills have I got? What can I learn to do? Could I make the hard choices? And it makes the poster part makes you ask questions about yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, I think most people would. Yeah, you're either going to end up as a sheep or a wolf or a sheepdog, and you don't really know which one you are until you get there.
Yeah.
So have you, one of the beauties of writing is that you can take characters, perhaps people that you've met in the real world, and you can insert them into your stories. Are there particular characters in your writings, um, that maybe you've met unique people in the real world, unique mannerisms or characteristics or personalities, and you've decided that that's somebody that I can incorporate into my story?
Oh no, I've never done that once. No, that's
Ever?
a complete lie. A good 90% of people in my books and characters are based on real people.
Hmm.
They're inspired by real people. Some big characters are amalgamations of people's appearances, characters, personalities, sense of humor. Um, I mean, like, take Neil in After It Happened. His sense of humor, his inappropriate comments, movie quotes, they're all taken from someone else and put in someone else's appearance. So yeah,
Hmm.
I'm highly inspired. I mean, back in the dim and distant past, when you used to be able to go on trains and stuff, and look at other people, you'd look at someone and think, yeah, you're strange, and then
That's an
they
odd person.
they're in public and they're having a speakerphone conversation. Right, okay, you're dying in my next book. um, so yeah, I am always inspired by people I see, experiences I have. Um, you pour your own experiences into a story, and your own
Mhm.
experiences involve other people. So yeah, I am the one thing I cannot do at all with writing is come up with a name. My wife's input is, right, I need a name for someone or other, and she's given up asking why now. She just lists like 10 names for me. I go, right, I'll pick one. I did it on the group the other day. I literally could not find a name for an extra, so I put a
Mhm.
post on the group saying, right, who wants to die in my next book? It's like
There you go.
20 people like, yeah, I'll do it.
Hey.
Yeah, which is weird. But yeah, you're all weird. But yeah,
Well,
I can't pick names, but I can pick people.
I think sometimes the name sort of has to match. You know, there's an ethos almost of who this person is, who this identity is, and until you get a name to them, the face remains blank. But the name has to match who they are.
You say a name, and people conjure an image.
Yes.
And your own experiences form that. But yeah, it has got to fit.
Yeah, it's funny, both being fathers, I never realized how many people in the world I didn't like until I had to name my children. And then I'm like, oh, I don't like that name because this person was a jerk to me in fourth grade, or this person, I didn't like him. And yeah, I imagine that would be a challenge.
Yeah, but everyone knows both my wife and I are ex-police, and trying to find a name for a boy and a girl that wasn't someone we've arrested, that took a while. That did take a while.
Now, so you said you often have real life influences for your characters. Do some of these characters come from people really close, like immediate friends or family? And if so, do they know that they've been used in some form as parts of your stories?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Outright tell people if something is closely based on someone, then absolutely they know.
Do you, when some of them inevitably are killed off in the story, how do they take that?
I don't think that's come up yet. That's
Not
one
yet?
thing no, it's one thing I've vowed to do next year is kill more of my characters.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, I mean,
I was upset when Neil died. I was upset.
it's one thing I'm learning from working with Josh Hayes. Every 5 minutes, I'm like, Josh, I'm developing this character. Oh yeah, I'll kill him in chapter 10. Don't. I need them. Like, pick someone else. Like, no,
Yeah,
I need them. Well, I've killed them.
they
Right,
gotta
okay,
go.
right. Yeah. So yeah, I don't actually kill enough of my characters. I redshirt people. I introduce characters to die, and I need to stop doing that.
Now, is some of that because you might be resistant to killing off a character because you really want to be able to use them later on?
It's
Or
partly
have you
that.
ever,
It,
and to add to that, have you ever killed someone and later in your writings were like, ah, damn it, I wish I could have used them, for this narration in the story?
I've not regretted killing someone. I've regretted not killing characters um, quite a few times. But no, I've never got to a point where I've painted myself into a corner and needed that character back. What I have done in the past is brought a character back to life, an entire book after I'd killed them, and these are going back a couple of years now, where they're editions where people don't know, and it was picked up like, that guy's dead. Like, okay, quick rewrite. Yeah, but that comes from my total pathological inability to plan anything.
It's more fun that way, much more spontaneous.
Hey, I don't know what's going to happen until it happens.
No idea. Always an adventure. So, um, let me get back on track. Given that some of the characters in your stories come from real life examples, who of your characters do you think would parallel closely to you, if at all?
Um, I'd probably go with Ash. Um, yeah, doesn't really know what's going on. Is just happy to be out and falls asleep a lot.
Okay, that
Yeah, I'm,
works.
I'm not gonna throw myself in any hero role. I put elements of myself into a lot of characters. Um, I've put a lot of elements of myself into a main character in Toy Soldiers. It
Mhm.
probably isn't what anyone would expect. It's certainly not any of the military characters. It goes back to the old adage of write what you know and add to it, embellish it. But a lot of what happened in the first Toy Soldiers book is based on experience, put it that way.
Okay. So, questions specifically regarding zombies.
Go for it.
If if they were real, would they be fast zombies or slow zombies? Are we talking World War Z or Walking Dead? It's a
Okay.
very, very serious question.
question with a question: is it this year or another year? Because if it's 2020, let's be honest, they're going to fly.
Yeah, they'd have wings.
Yeah, I would like to think it's not going to be 28 days later. It's going to be more Walking Dead. They're going to be shuffling, kind of slow moving, dangerous in big packs. That's what I hope, because my cardio's shit.
That works. You could have them tiered almost with different levels of speed. That's what Mike Fuchs did.
Yeah, you haven't got to the end of Toy Soldiers yet. There are.
I haven't gotten to the end. You know, one of the neat things about this genre is there are so many talented authors, and they all have series of books, which is great. The problem is when you reach a certain point on a series and you move on, and then you move on to another author, and then the other author releases a new book, everything sort of stops. Now you got to jump back to the other timeline. So that's where I'm at. I'm going between 4 different people right now, and so I apologize. I haven't gotten through Toy Soldiers yet.
I wouldn't rush to it yet, because I'll have an announcement on that in a bit.
That works. I was reading Joshua Guyu's books, and then I literally stopped abruptly through his last one when the last After It Happened book happened, and I had to go straight back to that. And it's just sort of, but the neat part of it is when you get into a genre, particularly with authors who are constantly creating and coming up with new stories. It's sort of like a buffet for the mind. There's always something there to take in, and that's pretty neat. It's not like in the past where you had to wait a year or more to get your paperback, and you line up at Barnes and Noble or Borders or a bookstore at midnight the night it comes out, so you can be the first one to get the copy. The beauty of modern publishing is that you can get access to these things so quick.
I think it's also the fact that, I couldn't jump from E-Cycle to Arisen to Toy Soldiers, because I'm a big believer in a genre break. So you've got your mill sci-fi, you've got your space opera, and I've got 150 hours of top quality new release books all lined up, but they're all waiting at the moment until I finish Seth Skorkowski's Voldekin series, because I'm so wrapped up in that at the moment, and it's so far removed from all of your top tier military or your mill sci-fi stuff that I'm really into that.
So when you started writing, you started with the After It Happened series, and the uniqueness of that series would be looking into human nature when put into such strenuous circumstances. When you get into a series like Toy Soldiers, where you can really just go full gore, so to say, why did you choose the human nature aspect and After It Happened, and then what was the motivation to switch into Toy Story, where you can really go off and get a little bit more outlandish?
It goes back to how to write what you know. Some of the most effective descriptions are from memory, and Toy Soldiers is set in the late 80s, just pre end of the Cold War, pre Gulf War, right in that area. And I went to school opposite the Bovington Tank Museum, so we used to have to stop lessons for an armored column to roll past and literally white out every bit of noise in a 10-mile radius. A friend of mine I ended up working with, who was very much my go-to technical advisor on that entire series, he was there at the time that I was at school. And it's amazing to, UK is a small place, but a huge place at the same time, for two people with absolutely no link to end up sat next to each other in a police station with that link 20 plus years previous. I knew the area. I grew up there. Everywhere that you read in that book, in the first two books, everywhere that you read is a place that I've physically been. And I did that because I wanted to. I wanted to do a zombie story, but I didn't want it to be a tier 1 operator. As much as I love writing that, I wanted to do it without modern technology, without modern communications, without modern weaponry. Guys aren't walking around with PNG, brand new PNGs on their head and stuff like that. You're dealing with guys who basically using
shotguns and
Well, at that time, the guys were using stuff the Second World War era. Those Sterling submachine guns, they were still in use up to the Gulf War. So yeah, they're using old weaponry to fight a completely different enemy.
Do you think if Toy Stories was set today, the story arc would have gone differently?
If Toy Story was set today, yes, because people wouldn't have sat 100 miles away from London waiting to get a phone call on the dial phone or watching one of the 4 channels of TV they've got to see what's on the news, because it would have been all over Twitter, would have been instant videos coming out. The instant graphic media element totally changes any kind of apocalypse. I mean, can you imagine? I don't want to get political. Can you imagine COVID in the early 80s? Because we wouldn't know about it. They just wouldn't have told us, and no one would know. There'd be a
People would be
couple of
largely
newspaper
ignorant.
stories.
Might notice, something's going on, but not necessarily have that exchange of information.
Yeah, we certainly wouldn't be getting text messages from local government on our phones who, I've never given them my number, telling me what the new lockdown restrictions are in my area.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, away from politics.
Another zombie question.
Go.
Oh, yeah, I'm kind of all done. We're a week away from the election over here, and I'm done. I'm all done with it at this point.
Just give up and move to Canada.
I'm right there. I could, but I don't know. I kind of like America. So there's a lot of books in the zombie genre. There's obviously a lot of movies as well. The zombie genre, maybe in the last 10 years or so, has had like a resurgence. Where in the 70s and the 80s you had the George R. Romero doing his movies, and it sort of died down a little bit. Do you prefer the more modern zombie movies or more the old school? And if so, which of them are your favorite?
Honestly, my top 2, Shaun of the Dead, because it's hilarious. And I mean, you need to watch Shaun of the Dead and then Hot Fuzz immediately after. And I don't know any single copper in the UK who would tell you, apart from like the whole like weird murder stuff, none of that film Hot Fuzz is inaccurate. I mean, I've worked rural areas, so. And it is. That is pretty much on the nose. Police work's not about shit. Yes, it is.
Yep.
But yeah, Shaun of the Dead, because it's brilliant. It's funny. And probably a little bit of an outside one here.
When they're in the pub and the zombies are coming in and he starts throwing darts, I just
Yeah, but this is what happens when you have
you could do. He's throwing darts anyway.
That's what you have a zombie apocalypse in a pretty much gunless country. Yeah. But my other top favorite is actually Warm Bodies, which is probably a bit outside the box. It's definitely not operator kind of thing. I got 5 seasons into Walking Dead before I literally couldn't stand anymore.
It ran its course a few years ago. They just haven't caught on to that yet.
Yeah, so I saw it. I saw an advert. It's still going. How is it still going?
Yeah, I don't even know. But it's still going. Apparently, they don't die. Apparently, that's the trick. Is the series can keep going when the nemesis never dies.
Yeah.
So that's the trick.
But yeah, those 2 definitely top 2 firm favorites.
So of your series that are out there, which one has been your biggest? I don't want to necessarily say seller, but which one has been the most popular, whether paperback or audiobook? Which one draws the most people?
Honestly, nowadays paperback is just a collector's item. It doesn't sell really. They don't, they're not huge markup. Paperback income is a trad pub area, and they need to get in this century kind of thing. Audible is a huge seller. Ebooks are very much the staple of it, but I'd say After It Happened is the big one.
Do you find that people who catch on to you as an author through the After It Happened, do they translate into some of the other series as well?
I think quite a lot do. Yeah. And there's people who will only listen to a narrator. There's people who only they only want more of that one series. Like, yeah, but you want book 10 of one series. What about my other 20 books, kind of thing? And
Right.
yeah, but then people don't want to read zombies, but then they do, because some fans have read Toy Soldiers because it was me and they loved After, and they're like, oh, now I like zombies. So
Mm-hmm.
it's one of those, people like what they like and don't like, but then
Mm-hmm.
you don't know unless you try something new. But what I'm starting to find now, this year especially, is that I'm starting to get fans joining the fan group or following my page on Facebook or signing up to my website email, and they're actually finding me through expansion or through Rise or through New Earth. But I'm not seeing people just coming through from the After series.
Mm-hmm. Now, of the After It Happened series, the last one that came out, would you say that the Dan storyline has concluded?
The Dan storyline has not concluded. The Dan point of view
Okay.
has, because I have one more book in mind, and that is very much a passing of the torch.
Okay. Which I'm assuming would go on to be the third of the Leah Chronicles stories.
Third, taking the entire series to 10, which will put that to bed nicely. I've tried twice to let that series go, to leave these people alone and let them enjoy retirement. But every few months
There's so much there, though. There's so much there.
There's
Now I got to be honest. I got to be honest, when they left to go to Africa, I'm like, what? He's lost me. What on earth are they doing? But when you transition that into settling down in the south of France, I saw where you're going with that. But for a second there, I was bouncing between your series and at the time I was reading Arisen. So I'm reading your series. Well, great, they're going to Africa, and now I'm in Arisen where they're now heading towards Somalia, and I'm like, please don't tell me they're going to converge these two worlds. But by putting it in that
they
setting,
weren't written at the same time. I mean, Michael wrote that. He would have written that before, because I was listening to that kind of at the same time, or a little bit after. If we'd have actually known each other better back then, there could have been an opportunity for a convergence at some point. But yeah, or even just some cameos in each other's worlds, kind of thing.
Now, if I'm not mistaken, there is an Easter egg in the After It Happened series.
There's
correct?
A lot of Easter eggs in my stuff. Yeah.
Tell me about some of these Easter eggs, because people who are a casual reader may not necessarily pick up on them, where other people may. What are some of the Easter eggs in there that people may have noticed or perhaps missed?
Are we talking about Home, the most recent After It Happened book?
Either Home or Toy Soldiers.
I don't want to give them away because there are 3 in Home.
Okay.
3 very deliberate ones that probably more noticeable in Audible. One's an outright drop in Audible because Bob literally switches into Fick, and he does a Gunny Fick impression through Neil. But there are 2 more Easter eggs in that book.
Being the narrator for both.
Yeah, and that's an Easter egg for.
Wouldn't have worked.
Yeah, but there's 2 more in that book. So anyone watching, I think I would give a prize for anyone who gets all 3.
So, without having to reveal any, I'm sure you get feedback in some way or another from people, either on Facebook or email or your website. Are there any Easter eggs still out there that, as far as you've heard, no one has caught yet?
Yeah, in expansion. There's a big couple of Easter eggs in expansion that people haven't picked up on.
Okay.
So yeah, challenge laid.
There's the challenge. Find the other Easter eggs.
Honestly, I do it all the time. I hint at movie quotes that you'd have to be a real geek to pick up on.
You've done that before in your fan group, and I'm pretty sure I got a good success at that.
Oh, the tenuous GIF link between Whip It and Pitch Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's there you go. The little insight to how my brain works. But yeah, I drop little Easter eggs in everything.
Mm-hmm.
So you kind of have to be on that wavelength to pick those up.
Mm-hmm. Um, Now, how many, not just series, but how many books total have you written so far? Because there's a lot, more than I can remember.
29 published at the moment, with 2 published shorts in anthologies, with another 3, another 6 out by spring.
Okay. That's impressive for someone who's only been doing it for 4 years.
4 years.
That's
Yeah,
that's pretty good.
yeah.
Um,
I put down a lot of words. I got up at 3:30 this morning because our baby's not very well. So with Moana in the background, I put down 5,000 words pretty much before breakfast. Which you think I could have taken the rest of the morning off, but no, I just carried on. Yeah, I do like words. I don't treat it as a holiday. I do treat it as a job.
do you have a target for each day or week of how many words you want to get done?
Oh, absolutely. And I spreadsheet track it. I have word-based trackers. If I don't see a graph going up, I don't feel like I'm achieving. If I don't feel like I'm achieving, I stop achieving. So I have to see some kind of
Hmm.
tangible result. So I'm always, well, not to say obsessive, but I'm always mindful of my word counts because that's how I judge any kind of achievement. I've done last 10 days, so I'm looking at the spreadsheet in the background. I've done 59,000, nearly 60,000 words in the last less than 2 weeks, 12 days. But then there's a big rank of zeros before that when we had problems with the babies and literally couldn't. If you're
Life
awake,
happens.
yeah, life does very much happen a lot this year. But like twice in 1 week, I've been awake throughout the night with, we've got a 2-year-old and a 1-year-old, and when one
Mhm.
gets back down, the other one gets up, and yeah, when you're awake all night, you can't really just crack on the day and work.
Yeah, no, it definitely interferes. Um, of the different series that you've written, so I have two questions. One, are there any that you would like to see made into a screenplay? And two, are there any currently in the works to be more than just something published?
Um, no, nothing's optioned. Um, I would, I'd love to see any of them on screen. I'd love to see I'd love to see a Tom Hardy play Dan. I'd love to see a good retro 80s throwback for TS to be made.
Mhm.
Um, there's a character in Expansion that's made for The Rock. Like I'll get him, but still. But yeah, honestly, I'd take something being a cartoon right now.
Yep.
But no, there are no current plans. But I am working on other projects that people don't know that are TV linked.
Okay, that's great. Now, you are uniquely able to interact with your fans online. This is one example of that, which is pretty cool. Um, you're the fan page, the Devon C Ford fan page. Who started that? Who started that group?
Um, let's going back to the start of the question. I think gone are the days where you travel 100 miles, wait in line to pay 100 quid for a book signed by someone who's rolled out to do 4 of these events a year. Those days are gone. Social media opens up the worlds and drops the boundaries. So, I started an official business page as an author nearly 4 years ago, and that's grown to close to 2,000 people. But then, kind of this splinter group kind of peeled off, where I had a few super fans. I brought them on as admins. They even know my real name. And they've run this group about me, and actually had the decency to invite me in to it, obviously. But yeah, there's daily interaction on there, and it's kind of people's safe space to whether the only thing they've got in common. And it's hard not to be a little bit egotistical about it. The only thing these 700 plus people on that fan group have got in common is me. And that's really cool that, you know, you brought people together, and people have been reassuring and helping each other out through lockdown and COVID. And, you know, to be in any way able to kind of support that has been great. There are some absolute nutcases on there, and I think they only come there because we're the only group that hasn't banned them yet.
The internet tends to, the internet and social media tends to attract nutcases.
Yeah, as do I. I met my ex-wife. Justin, I am talking about you, by the way. Yeah. But yeah, it's fun. So I've got my main page, and I've got the splitter group, which, as I said, that I've been lucky enough to be actually invited to be part of it. So I know what people are saying. But it's fun, and it's fun every day. But the way things are now with social media, why shouldn't authors be accessible to fans? Why should you not be able to drop me an email and ask me a question? Because I answer as much as I can.
You know, as
I get some absolute freaks. Yeah, I've had multiple death threats. I've had abuse. Yeah. Oh, you would not believe it.
Why?
Why? Because I left a cliffhanger on book one. Because my opinion on the loudness of a weapon, the difference between quiet and near silent, and we're talking semantics. I've had abuse for getting that wrong. It's, you know, if you put yourself out there, you make yourself a target, don't you? As soon as you put your head above the parapet, someone's going to take a shot at it. But yeah, I do have a habit of attracting some odd people who want to let me know their opinion like I give a shit. Simple as that. Sorry. You know, everyone has the right the right to free speech. I also have the right to completely ignore them, as does anyone. If someone doesn't like my books, they don't have to read them. They don't have to send me a 26 paragraph letter saying why they don't want to read them, because you've just written that for yourself. But yeah,
one of the unique things of it is, you know, you have the benefit of creating worlds, creating complete alternate realities, some which are very similar to our own, where like after it happened, where sometimes, particularly in this last year in particular, feels like we could just be a few steps away from a situation like that. And then vastly different worlds. So you get to create these worlds, and then people get to interact. I had a very unique experience about 6 years ago. I traveled to England with some friends and family. I grew up reading Chronicles of Narnia, Lord of the Rings, and I went to Oxford, went to the Eagle and Child pub, and at the very back room of the Eagle and Child pub is sort of a dining room where you can sit and you can eat a meal. And I ate fish and chips in the very room that Lewis and Tolkien would get together and discuss their books and where they were going. So to be able to sit in an environment like that was pretty neat. What social media does is it brings the creator with the recipient of it and allows them to interact in a very free environment. Now, there are pros and there are cons to that, but thank you for that as someone who enjoys your work and what you do, who gains a lot, especially on the long car rides. And, you know, when life is happening and I need a little distraction and I can jump into these worlds for a little while, to have that interaction is very meaningful and is significant. So thank you for that on behalf of me and the many other people who benefit from some of those stories and who enjoy that. It's pretty cool. I don't have to go to England to interact with you, which is
it's
pretty
appreciated.
neat.
And I said this is fun. I was talking to the admins on the group, and when, you know, the request to do a video came up, I said, well, why don't we put it out to the fan group, see if anyone wants to do it themselves? Because why not? And next time I do a Q&A, I'll put it out to see if somebody wants to do that. Again, you know, why does it have to be Any kind of special podcast or something like that. I have a reach. I have a page. I can put the videos up. People always want to know a Q&A, and you never know what comes up. But yeah, this is actually really cool, and it's definitely something I'm going to do again.
Now, to that Q&A, given that interaction that you have online with fans, do they influence some of the works that you're doing? And do you actually change some of your storylines based on some of your reader interactions?
No, I know I'm not a huge planner. I don't say that with any arrogance. I'm not a huge planner, but when I've kind of set off in a direction, I go in that direction. The reader wants the story that the reader wants. But they don't know if they like it yet until I've written it. I mean, by all means, if I've written it, read it. If you don't like it, don't like it. That's fine. That's fine with that. Absolutely fine. But you never know till you try it.
So right now, sort of being at the early end of your writing career, Lord willing, you'll go on to have a great career and publish another 30, 40, 50, 60 books, which would be great. To the people following in your footsteps, given that this is a new environment for writers, for the people who are now 5, 10, 15 years out from actually writing their first story, who are having these ideas knocking around their head, what advice would you give them based on your experiences that might set them up for success?
In terms of success, I don't know. Success is an algorithm. Success is a shot in the dark and luck. There are 50 people like me who didn't have luck and didn't get the start that I got, and I still don't know how I got it. So I'm grateful for that luck. But my only advice for anyone who wants to be a writer is just write. You can't be a writer unless you've got something written. Start with a short, start with notes, start with an idea, start with an outline, however you want to do it. I'm still evolving how I write after 30 books. I work with different people. I learn new techniques. I've collaborated with 3 different people now, working in very different ways. I've become an editor, doing actual commissioning editing. So I see a lot of raw talent, and I see a lot of raw attempts. There's a story in everyone. It's not always a story everyone wants to read, but the only thing you can do if you want to be a writer is write. The way I explained it to people, that a guy submitted a manuscript to me, and he basically apologized for the quality of it. And I basically told him the story of Ed Sheeran. When Ed Sheeran was busking for pennies on London Underground, the songs he was singing then and the songs being released in his first album, that's the difference of the publishing process. You've got the raw talent and you've got the finished product.
Fine polishing.
Exactly. It's been edited, it's been produced, it's been professionalized, and that's what the publishing process does. So never play down what you've got in your hand, because you could be sat on the next Harry Potter if you've just got the balls to show it to somebody.
One last question for you.
Go on.
Do you love what you do?
Absolutely. My bio, if I had to sum up my entire bio, what do I do for a living? I make shit up, and some people like it and give me money for it. I get to live. I'm a 38-year-old boy. I get to live inside my own head, change the rules of physics, change history, write alternative futures. I get to literally make up whatever I want, and I get money for that. Sometimes not a lot, sometimes a nice amount that lets me do nice things. But I play it down because somebody posted something the other day. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was along the lines of, for all the people who sat in front of Netflix or read a book when they were locked down, unable to work, remember that you turned to artists during a time of crisis. And if anything, the situation we're in now has pointed out a few things. One of those is that there is absolutely sod all on Netflix, and the only new stuff coming out is like Swedish and dubbed. And like, are we that desperate for content? Because please, somebody over there, have a look at my books, because the stuff you're producing is crap. But anyway,
Tiger King and things like that. We've
that
got to do better than Tiger.
That is the best car crash TV I have ever seen in my life.
That's as American as you can get, and normally I don't apologize, but I have to apologize.
My wife wouldn't watch it. She took one look at it and go, "Yeah, I'm not watching that."
Everyone was very sick. We weren't doing well when Tiger King came out.
Well, I was very guilty of quoting it the other day. I've got the heating on because it's nearly November and it's cold here, and the kitchen window is wide open because the cat might want to come in and out. So I got the heating on and I got the window open, and I did that thing of everyone who's grown up in the 80s with a dad. And I stood there and I looked at the heating, and I looked at the window, and I'm never going to financially recover from this. And I'll turn around to her, and she didn't get it, and I was like, and she didn't get it. I was like, oh god. So yeah,
went right over. That's great. Well, Mr. Ford, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much for doing this. It's been great. What I'm going to do, since as you're a brave volunteer to do this, I'm going to drop you a couple of audible credits ready for use. Make sure you save one for November 10th, because the entire series of Toy Soldiers, books 1 to 6, are all coming out in one ebook, and all 6 audibles will be available for 1 credit on November 10th. So that's the Toy Soldiers full series. What I'm going to do as well, if you drop me a mailing address, I'll get these 2 in the post to you, nicely signed up, and I'll drop you a couple of audio credits as well. So thanks for doing this. I hope everyone on the Written Undead gets to enjoy it too. Thanks, everybody. Cheers, Ant.